Mercury in Scorpio in the birth horoscope. And you can find out if you have Mercury in Scorpio or in what sign you have Mercury, the planet of communication, skills, interests, and learning. And a very social planet that describes your personality to a great extent, because people know us through our speech, through our communications, through how we exchange information and how we present ourselves through our thoughts to them. So how do you find out what sign your Mercury is in? You don't need to know astrology. Just need to know your birthday, you know. You don't even need to know your time of birth. Go to my birth chart calculator. I'm putting a link for it here to my website, AstroLada.com. Enter your details. If you don't have your time of birth, put it for 12 o'clock or whatever time for that day, your place of birth, and go to the planetary detail table. Scroll below, you'll see it's one of the small tables at the bottom, and you'll see all the planets are enumerated, and next to them, opposite them, is the sign that the planet falls in. And find Mercury. It can be in any of the 12 signs, but if it happens to be in Scorpio, this video is for you. So what does it mean to have Mercury in Scorpio? As we said already, Mercury is the planet of communication and the planet of our thinking. And Scorpio is a very deep, profound sign. So these people will be deep thinkers. They will be serious thinkers. They would not... I ask actually always before I make a video, I go on Facebook and I ask people, do you have Mercury in Scorpio? Share. How do you learn? How do you think? And so many Mercury in Scorpio people said, we don't like small talk. We don't like superficial conversation. They bore me, or I avoid them. I find them silly. They usually, a lot of them said that they like to observe before they start communicating with someone, to get the feel about someone. So they often can be very good listeners, because that's their strategy. They're strategic communicators. They are, you know, they, sorry, whenever the speech is calculated. And why is that? Because Scorpio is a very psychological sign, and Mercury in Scorpio people approach people psychologically. They want to communicate on a deep level, and first even to get to know the weaker sides of another person, to get the feel, the energy of another person. So they would sit, they would listen to you before they open up. And many Scorpio and Mercury people said we open up more slowly to others until we feel safe and secure, until we feel, you know, that then we can start opening. And then actually Mercury in Scorpio can become very passionate about what they communicate, because Scorpio is a sign ruled by Mars, one of the planets that rules it, and Mars is a passionate planet. So when you get Mercury in Scorpio to talk about something they're excited about, they can raise their voice, they can bring very dramatic intonation, or quiet down and then raising the voice. They can be amazing at that, because Scorpio is such a dramatic and psychologically impactful sign, so they know psychologically how to influence others with their words. And from very young, Mercury in Scorpio people learn about the power of words, because Scorpio is all about power. Mercury is communication and words. So they know how powerful words can be. That's why you'd not see them spewing out words randomly or just chatting to everyone, unless of course there is other aspects to their Mercury in Mercury in Scorpio, like Jupiter, that expands the talkativeness, you know. But usually they would observe, they'll psychologically judge the other person, they'll prefer to talk about deeper, more insightful topics that are psychologically relevant, that get to the bottom of a matter as well. But even if they sometimes are more quiet than other times, they're listening, they're observing. And then when they get passionate, my God, you know, the Mars passion comes out then. Or if you provoke them, then Mars is the planet of self-defense, and it will attack you and it will bite you. And Scorpio has the sting. So once provoked to challenge, the sting comes out. You might not actually see it initially, you know, because Scorpio is a feminine sign, so there can be gentleness initially. But once provoked, once cornered, you know, and they can then the bluntness or the incisiveness and kind of biting ability to observe and to bite back at you comes, the scorpionic type of thinking and communication. And sorry. And they can even be blunt then and say what they want, because the Mars gets triggered. But initially, it's like, imagine like a deep river that's calm on the surface, but it's very deep underneath, and you don't know what kind of monsters are lurking there, and you might think that you can just waddle through the river, you know, but actually there's the Loch Ness monster is there. So when communicating with those people, be careful, and they're also careful, you know. And they're amazing at keeping secrets, and often they attract people wanting to share secrets with them. For some reason, that's their energy, because the scorpionic energy is very sucks within, and it's deep. But often they'll not be the ones that share their own secrets. They'll be the ones that you go to share your secrets to, because they keep those secrets and they might use them later for better or worse. So they have the mind of a detective as well. People with such Mercury and Scorpio, some of them are really investigators, detectives, investigative journalists, or investigators, scientific investigators that go back in time, try to investigate stories, try to investigate history in some way. One of the best investigatory astrologers has Mercury in Scorpio, I know, and he translates dead languages. Scorpio is the sign of the dead. So Mercury is languages, communication. So this astrologer learned Akkadic language and Babylonian and Sumerian to translate astrological clays and to make research about catastrophic events that lost the full knowledge of astrology. So those people with Mercury in Scorpio will also be interested, because Mercury shows our interest, mental interest in catastrophic events, in life-turning changes, in topics of death and rebirth, in topics that are taboo for others, that are even scary for others, in topics of investigation, mystery, occultism. Detective mind, again, as I said, analytical mind, very good analytical piercing mind, because Mars is the planet of logic. So they have logic. But at the same time, Scorpio is a water sign. That's why Scorpio is a complicated sign, because it's ruled by a male planet, masculine planet, but it's a feminine sign. So it has so much contradiction in it. That's why so many people, are interested in Scorpio. It's like such a conflicted but interesting sign. And so they have the masculine side, but they have the feminine. So they have the masculine logical side, very good analytical skills, very good research skills with Mars, digging deeper, detective spy skills, and a logical, take something, put it into parts and put them back together. And also there is logic there, but there is also the feminine intuitive side of the water sign, Scorpio. So that's why they are amazingly penetrating and insightful conversationalists and thinkers. Because they, some signs are just feminine or just masculine. They're either logical and rational, or either very intuitive and mystical. Scorpio has both. That's why it's such a rare combination and such an interesting position for any planet in Scorpio. And Mercury, their thinking is they have the intuition and the logic. So that's why they also, Mercury in Scorpio people is found very often in people that are psychologists, because psychologists need to intuitively understand things and to also logically understand them, and very good in scientists, researchers, because they need to have the logic to research, the rational side, but also the intuitive to feel the direction, because they're going into the blind they're researching. Or that also is very often met in people who are amazing, that are dealing with big businesses, with big masses of groups that are dealing with speech, or in some way organizing, managing, which is Mercury, management, organization of big resources. Scorpio rules big money or big businesses that are impacted by the psychological trends of the moment, because they can feel the trends, the undercurrents that are happening in the world right now, and at the same time they can analyze them and make sense out of them, and they can create a strategic plan how to act what to do next, because Mercury is the planet of planning, and Scorpio is the most strategic sign and also intuitive. They feel the undercurrents of what's happening around the world, or where the markets are going to go, or what the next business move should be intuitively, and then they strategically work it out and act on them. So big in people saying, hedge funds, I've seen people that work with big resources, other people's money, in big companies that are kind of not only oligarchs, but how do I say big? I've written the word here because I keep forgetting it. Power, positions of power. Sorry, and and they also have, when they speak, some of them can be amazing orators. For example, Churchill, which is known as probably the most famous English minister, orator, who kept the whole nation, England, during the Second World War, kept its morals high, because at the start of the Second World War, there was very little hope, because Germany was so powerful then, and everything was was happening for Germany rather than for the British, for the English. And with his speech, with his very carefully, strategically worked out speeches, Churchill kept the morale of the whole English nation, and turned almost he wasn't on his own that turned the events, but that so well recognized, his speeches. And there's some interesting facts about Churchill. You know that he was born with a lisp. He couldn't, something like that, probably. He had problems speaking, but because Scorpio is such a sign of willpower, Mars is ruled by Mars. And with his willpower, he trained through lessons of enunciation, he trained himself to to overcome this lisp, this speech impediment. So when they set their mind to something, they go strategically and with willpower, and they can tackle it. Especially, for him it was speaking, Mercury, and he became one of the best orators. And it says in his autobiography that from very young he was very much aware through overcoming this lisp of the power, of the great power that words have. So he became one of the greatest orators of the 20th century. And he was writing in his autobiography that every word of his many speeches that he wrote, every single speech himself. And every 1 minute of speech he worked on for 1 hour. So everything was thought out strategically, positioned strategically. When he was making his speeches, he would he would put intonations, how to pronounce it to impact others. He would leave spaces longer or shorter for how long the silence should be, so the impact is more powerful. So you see how impactful orators and communicators they can be, even if they start out not as such good ones, even if they have some speaking or communication problem initially, because Scorpio is the sign of willpower again, And what they said is that he mobilized the English language and put it into battle. Scorpio is the sign of the general, of the strategist of the war. Scorpio is the sign of the battleground. So he used Mercury, the language, the English language, and turn it into battle. And so another person that I spoke to, they said, I'm a human lie detector. I forgot her name, but she wrote on Facebook and she said, it's like when someone sits in front of me, I can immediately know if they're lying to me or not. And first I would give them some leeway, and I would ask them questions to, gently, more manipulatively, if they're lying to me, so they can correct their path. And if they don't do that, I would really attack them and call their bullshit, as they say. Maybe they're very good at poker, because Mercury is playing games, and Scorpio is strategy, so maybe they can be amazing poker face players, You can't really see, just like the river that's calm on the surface, you don't know what's inside, and they have such strategy, intuition. They can have very sharp mind. Their mind is very observant, very sharp. Their speech can be sharp, but usually you would see them more controlled. Just like Pluto, the other lord of Scorpio, is very controlled planet. It's about control, and they can have speech which is about power. For instance, they have the more lower evolved Mercury and Scorpio people might use words as manipulation to get things from others, so to make others do what they want or to change other people's minds. But more so they use the power of their speech, or even somehow to put someone down in a very subtle way, so they get the power. But more evolved Mercury and Scorpio people, with age, they learn to utilize this for the good. So basically help someone psychologically, help someone get to the bottom of an answer, empower another person so they can take power of others with their words, or they can empower others with their communication. It depends on the level of consciousness. They can be extremely obsessive thinkers. Mercury is the mind, your thoughts, and Scorpio is obsessive sign. Thoughts can go on a loop, ideas can go on a loop. And the thing is that this is one combination that can be very powerful for manifesting thoughts. Scorpio is a powerfully manifesting sign, because when you get obsessed about something, you can't get it out of your mind. You generate a huge power field, mental field around you that can attract the things in your life, attract the things that you're obsessing about. And here is the fine line. Do we obsess about fears? Do we obsess about dark, difficult things? Do you obsess about, Scorpio is a very dark sign on the lower level? Or do you obsess about achievements, things you can help others? Depends again on your level. So even if you're someone who obsesses all the time, has paranoias or fears with Mercury in Scorpio, or always obsessed about the darker side, or worries obsessively about something, or can't get someone out or something out of their head, they should know that having this power to obsess, they can turn it around and use this obsessive power to replace the negative thoughts with positive ones. So again, through their willpower and their ability to be obsessive, they can turn from losing side to self-destructive negative thoughts to really empowering. And often Mercury and Scorpio people start with very self-destructive thoughts, very self-disempowering, obsessive thoughts on a loop that are usually not even their own. They pick up because they're very intuitive, some thought or idea, and the more you think about it, the more you generate and start manifesting it. But at a certain point in their life, they realize the power of thoughts to manifest, and they can turn around. And I've seen such amazing transformations. Scorpio is the sign of transformation. Such amazing transformations of people that are obsessive compulsive, or a bit too dark or too negative. At one point in their life, Mercury in Scorpio can become as powerfully empowered, extremely empowered through their own thoughts, because they train their own thoughts like a soldier, like a military operation through life, how to throw out and not allow the negative or obsessive negative thoughts, and how to substitute this with obsessively positive thoughts and empowering. But the obsession will be there. Whether they want it or not, they can choose to use it for something good. Deep thinkers, they assess always people and situations. Their sense of humor can be very dark and biting, very sarcastic as well at moments, very quick-wit as well. Mars is quick, like the sting. Doesn't have to be hurtful always, but it's gonna be on the mark, And how do they learn? They learn usually. Quite a few people shared on Facebook that they learn through deep, intense study. And Scorpio is a fixed sign, so it might take some time to regurgitate the information they get, to think about it, to analyze it, to intuit it, to feel it, both logically and intuitively. And by researching things, by getting to the bottom of things, by going to the first reason why. Maybe as a child they would often ask, and why is this? And when you tell them, and why is that? And when you tell them, why is that? Till they get to the very bottom, to the underlying reason. So that's how they learn, a bit more slowly, but the information is retained for a long time. Scorpio is a retentive sign, is the sign of the anus. Scorpio, that's where we can basically, they say, was there a word anally retentive or something like that? But once they learn something, they can it takes some time to get to know it, to investigate it, to think about it, but then they can keep it for a long period. And often they don't forget. They say that Mercury is thinking. Scorpio is the sign that doesn't forgive. It's not true. Scorpios can forgive, but they first have to go through a little catharsis of their own by seething with those negative and more painful thoughts or feelings, because Scorpio's path in this lifetime is to experience those more painful, seething, destructive feelings and thoughts anyway, and to let them go after that. Just like the anus, the most poisonous part of our body, goes there, you know, the feces goes there, and basically it's very toxic. It stays there, and then at one moment when the body is ready, you know, the sphincter opens up. I'm sorry, why am I giving such examples? But this is Scorpio, so none of you, I'm sure, with Mercury in Scorpio is so squeamish in any way. So, sorry. So in the same way, Mercury in Scorpio people can retain memories, difficult, negative, even find it a bit hard to forgive friends and other people for longer, because they feel deeper, the toxicity there, and they need longer time to work on it, to break it down, to intuitively as well, logically, and to find a strategy after that to release it. Sorry about that. Okay, so amazing psychologists, amazing occultists, they might be very much interested in mysteries, in the dark, in the forbidden, in the taboo, in the topics that others would not talk about, whether it's cheating, whether it's racism, whether it's abuse of some sort, whether it's private relationships, whether it's astrology. Astrology is a very taboo topic still in many places. For instance, Aleister Crowley, the father of Satanism, the father of occultism, of modern occultism, but he was more on the dark side. Do as you will. That was his motto. Had Mercury in Scorpio, and you know Aleister Crowley. It was all about the reverse pentagram, Satanism, about going to the extremes in life, experimenting with the passions. Scorpio is the sign of deep passions, so Aleister Crowley was promoter. And very much interested in going to the extreme, taking all the drugs, having as much promiscuous sex, even with children. You know, he pushed it to the limit. I'm not saying all Scorpio, Mercury people are like that, but they definitely will go and explore, because Mercury is the planet of exploration and research, things to the limit, a bit black and white, either all or nothing, like I'm dressed, black and white. This is Mercury thinking. There are no gray areas for them, so Aleister Crowley went to push the limits of the passions, of the human passions, and that's what Mercury and Scorpio people would often do in different ways, in different areas of life. And Scorpio is the sign of the rebellion. Many people say it's Aquarius, but no, because Scorpio is ruled by Mars, and Scorpio is the sign of big changes. And Mars is the planet that wants innovation and change. Scorpio is the sign of big psychological transformations and changes. So those people do believe that things can change and can be transformed. And with their words, they would often be provokers of such change. Often a Scorpio and Mercury person will be someone that comes and tells you something that no one else had the guts to tell you. Maybe everyone was tiptoeing around you and not telling you that, for example, you have a drug habit, or that you're a total asshole, or that what you're doing is not right, or that you're, whatever it is. The Mercury in Scorpio person being the rebel or the instigator of change. Scorpio is the sign that is instigator of big psychological change. They would come and it would bite you, and you'd remember those words. You'd remember it even if you're very pissed with them and upset. Their words will have power, and they'll go deep within and start working on you to push you to transform yourself. And Mercury in Scorpio people have such thoughts about themselves as well. They can be very harsh sometimes with their thoughts towards themselves, and to push themselves to constantly transform psychologically themselves. And they often would be reading books on psychology, would be reading materials on the power of speech, or how to control others, or how to influence others, or how to be, anything to do with the psychology and transformation and deep impact psychologically on others. Let's see about some people, you know, that usually investigators, police people, psychiatrists, people in dramatic power plays have that, occultists, investigators, scientists sometimes. But let's look at some celebrities to give you an example. A writer, because Mercury is writing. A famous writer that has Mercury in Scorpio is Oscar Wilde. You know, The Picture of Dorian Gray, for example, he wrote. And what the critics said about that book, I'll read it for you because I just took it out from the internet, is that in that book, generally Oscar Wilde, his style of writing was that he commanded an astonishing mastery of the art of morbidity. That's very Scorpio, morbidity. Describing in unusual detail images of corpses and blood and murder in Dorian Gray. You know, if you read, he would go like really focusing on the gory details. He had an incredible talent for morbidity and evil. He had an astonishing grasp on the reality of human nature and the darkness that resides in everyone's soul. So people with Mercury in Scorpio, they're so observant, they feel the darkness in everyone. Maybe that's why they're not so willing to open themselves immediately and make friendships before they test and see people. Because they're aware of those undercurrents. That's what Scorpio latches on. That's what it resonates on. And we need such people. While Oscar Wilde was particularly attuned to the darker side of things, you know. And I had a boyfriend with Mercury in Scorpio. And once he suspected that I cheated on him, someone told him something, I don't know. And he said, let's go for a walk, let's go for a ride in the car. And he stopped the car, it was 2 o'clock in the morning. He stopped the car in the middle of a dark park and took out a knife and said, confess. I was like, what the hell? I knew he'd not do anything because I knew him very well. He's a kind person, but he was just dramatic and he wanted to make a point. And he left me in the park there and then came back 2 minutes later and said, apologize. He said, sorry, but that's kind of the dark thinking Mercury and Scorpio can have. They can confront you with that as well. Another celebrity that has Mercury in Scorpio, it was Sylvia Plath. And she was a poet, a writer who killed herself. How dramatic. And she was thinking a lot. All her poetry was about the theme of death, which is Scorpio, of rebirth, resurrection. Scorpio is death and resurrection and redemption. So you see, Sylvia Plath, if you read, I've read her books, not poetry so much, I'm not a poetry reader, but her books, and you could feel the intensity of her thoughts. You could feel the obsessiveness of her thoughts. She tried 4 times to kill herself, like she didn't give up. But I'm not saying Mercury in Scorpio people are inclined to suicide and things like that, but if they latch onto a dark thought, the process of unlatching off because of the obsessiveness and the power that is generated through obsessive thinking can be very hard to get out of there. Usually they benefit a lot through psychological, through working with a psychologist, or through some crisis that happens to spin them out of that direction and stop them thinking. Okay, another celebrity is Sinead O'Connor. What is she known for? Sinead O'Connor is like so provoking in her speech. She would not say much, but when she did, she tore the picture of the Pope, and she was, with her words, she wanted to make a change. She was also Sagittarius Sun, so she was very idealistic as well. She is very idealistic. She's still alive, but her words were biting, and she made lots of enemies because of that, but she didn't care. And she also said, one of her quotes, maybe it was mean, but I really didn't think so. You asked for the truth and I told you. That's Mercury in Scorpio. And then another famous person is Deepak Chopra, occultist. Occultist, Mercury in Scorpio is about the hidden part of life, the invisible, the astral, the otherworldly, life after death, empowerment, psychological empowerment, and self-work on oneself. And I love one quote from Deepak Chopra, which is so Scorpionic, Mercury in Scorpio. All great changes are preceded by chaos. And Scorpio is the sign of changes and reversals. And I want you to remember, if one thing you remember from this video is this quote, all big changes are preceded by chaos. And Mercury and Scorpio know that. That's why they don't lose their cool in very dramatic or chaotic or critical situations. They kind of intuitively know that after a dark night of the soul comes the sun, or comes a huge change that will change the direction. That's why they're great for psychologists again, as I said. And that's why they're very good crisis managers. Mercury is managing, organizing, planning. And when in Scorpio, whenever there is chaos and everyone is falling apart and is thinking what's happening, what we're going to do, Mercury and Scorpio are there to keep things in control and to strategically plan out the path ahead. Okay, so I think we spoke a lot about Mercury in Scorpio. And there is another quote from Deepak Chopra I wanted to mention, very Mercury in Scorpio again, and it says, whatever relationships you have attracted in your life at this moment are precisely the ones you need now. There is a hidden meaning behind all events, and this hidden meaning is serving your own evolution. On that note, thank you very much, Mercury and Scorpio people. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you for the next one. Mercury in Sagittarius. Subscribe to my channel, call me on one of my psychics for a reading and or lessons, whatever. Thank you. Bye.